Hey, so this isn't an actual Mixlife show. This is mostly just a little live update. Wanted to keep everybody updated. You got your boy Concrete, the large Marge of the mixing game. Um, Adam is off building his own weather station. Koppel is currently showing off his collection of ears to local children, and Dave is losing a pie eating contest right now. So just wanted to give everybody an update, heads up. Mixlife is moving. So we're going to switch the show to Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, I think it is. Figure that way we'll go ahead, maybe get a little bit more content. Not that you don't want to hear Adam and I talk about the weather for an hour each Sunday. I know that's fascinating, but also wanted to say thank you for watching. And there's Emily. Hey. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for following along. If you had any questions quick today, more than happy to try to take care of them. But yeah, it was mostly just to say that we're moving and we'll be back on Wednesday. Also, I have too many windows open and staring at my own face is making me go mad. So let's close some of those. Okay, Andrew Garfield, you have some questions. Let's hear them. Season 2, there we go. Yeah, that was the official nomenclature that Adam came up with. And if you like this change, it was all Adam's idea. And if you hate it, it's all Koppel's fault. That's usually how these things go. So I'm just sitting here like waiting, rubbing my hands together, waiting for those sweet questions. Let's get it popping here. I know it's been a slow week for me. I've just been banging out like chocolate reviews. I need to record some videos today, so we'll see what ends up happening. But hey, it's Alfred Pudding. Hey, bud, how you doing? Okay, Andrew Garfield, what's the point of using TFA brown sugar? Are there better substitutions with the same properties? You talked about Flavora Caramel is an equal substitution. Flavora Caramel is in fact better than TPA brown sugar, and it does basically the same thing. TPA's brown sugar, for me at least, has like this, like it's warm, like it kind of tastes like a bakery, but it has this weird kind of chemical overtone to it. Flavora's caramel just tastes a little bit cleaner with some of that like warm brown sugar effect. So Flavora's caramel is definitely recommended. I don't know. There's a couple other things you could use. I've been screwing around a little bit more with Vape Train's raw sugar. That seems to be having some of the same effect. There's some actual texture there. It's not like as dark as brown sugar, but it does give you at least some like brown sugary kind of texture and some light molasses notes. So that one's worth looking at too. Uh, Okay, Vape Train Russian vodka Alfred Pudding is a weird flavor. So I give Vape Train all the credit in the world for like getting like an alcohol note, right? Because it really does just taste like kind of cheap alcohol heat. But if you think about where people are using like vodkas in real life cocktails and stuff, like a lot of times you don't really want to taste the vodka. It's just like magical alcohol juice to get people wrecked without thinking about it. That that Russian vodka kind of sits on top of a recipe too. So I've never got it to actually blend down into a recipe. Like it can add like a float of alcohol heat at the end of a recipe, but it doesn't really soak into the recipe. Like it doesn't make the entire recipe boozy. It just mostly adds to like the exhale, like you've drank like too strong of a cocktail. So it's a little bit hard to use. It doesn't really integrate itself particularly well with a lot of recipes. You can use it with like fruitier stuff if you want to make like some sort of like fancy girl drink drunk kind of thing. It's going to work fairly well there, but really it's just like a boozy exhale that you add on top of cocktail bases. But I do have to say, like, it's impressive the fact that they've got that booze note so down. It just doesn't really blend into the rest of the mix, so it's a little bit harder to use. My favorite booze flavors. Vape Train does some awesome booze flavors if you actually want to taste something boozy. Their light rum is good. It doesn't have much presence to it, but it does have an accurate rum booze note. Their bourbon, also very light, doesn't have a whole lot of presence or body, but it does an accurate bourbon. Their brandy is also good. Very, very boozy, though. If you move outside just like one of those boozy top notes and you want like full alcohol concentrates, you're better off layering. TFA's Kentucky bourbon makes a really good like base if you want to put some Vape Train bourbon on top of it. You can even go the extra mile and add some extra like charred oak to it with either Flavor's bourbon or TPA's red oak. You can get like a nice full bourbon vape that way. FA's Jamaican rum, not very boozy by itself, but it does have like really nice dark notes. And so adding a little bit of that Vape Train light rum on top of Jamaican rum gives you a very good rum. Flavor Arts brandy, nice and sweet, a little bit on the fruity side. Again, you add some Vape Train brandy on top of that, you get both like the fruity, thick sort of body, but you also get some actual alcohol heat to it. So those are probably like some of my favorite combinations. If you're just looking for something vaguely boozy to vape by itself, Vape Train's Blood Orange Champagne. Excellent champagne note. The blood orange is a little on the artificial side, but it works with what's going on. So that's my favorite like solo boozy vape. Good. Oh, what is a good additive for a generic toastiness? Well, we're talking brown sugar. So it's a little hard, I want to say, like when people talk about generic like toastiness, like you can warm stuff up with like a brandy flavor or FA's liquid brandy for like a toasted grain note. You're trying a little bit harder. I have had some decent success with Vape Train's biscuit base. Because it's not actually the base for a biscuit. It's what it is. It's like a sort of darker wheat additive that you can add on top of other bakery flavors. So I found like that's like a pretty cool thing for trying to make like more of a toasted thing. Flavor was pie crust. A little bit of that can go a long way in adding some extra toastiness. But yeah, outside of like Flavor caramel, brown sugar, like that genre, if you want to do it that way, you can also like do some bakery modifiers, or if you want just like a general warmth to like a profile that has some fruit in it, or even just like a normal bakery, TPA's Kentucky bourbon, Flavor Art liquid amber, those kinds of things work too. Flavor West pie crust is good. It tastes a little more savory to me than TFA's pie crust. I haven't done a ton of work with the two, but I have tested them and I was messing around with the recipe, and the Flavor West pie crust just seems a little bit, it seems earthy without being like kind of muddy and almost dog foodish. I don't know. Flavors, what I recommend is a good start for a mulled wine. Flavora's Sangria is pretty good if you want like a sort of darker red wine note. I don't have a ton of experience with red wine concentrates. I know that Flavor Art makes one, but that Sangria is pretty solid, honestly. It takes like all of the brighter parts of red wine and pretty much just gets rid of them, which you're going to do with mulling wine, and just gives you like some of that sweet red wine, a little bit of like dark citrus flavor. So I'd probably build off that one. What's next on my list of flavor reviews? Well, let's see. I have the rest of my Vape Train to finish. I know that there is a bunch of their toffees, some of their vanilla cream, vanilla buttercream, that kind of stuff. I've got English marmalade I need to get through, bubblegum base, all sorts of fun stuff. It's going to be about 20 more Vape Train reviews, and then thinking about going back to basics. And going back and doing some reviews on stuff that I never really went into reviews on because I was posting on the DIY Reddit subreddit where a bunch of stuff was already established. So I figure I'm going to like dive back into some of the more basic flavors and give my own take and review on those. So that should be fun. Should I use 27 Bears, 27 Fish as a texture additive without adding flavor? Yeah, I mean, you can definitely do that. The thing is, they're good texturally, but you're going to have to work within the profiles. They don't have super, super strong flavors. The 27 Bears has a bit of a pineapple thing, so you're talking about like any kind of tropical thing, you're going to be able to snake that pineapple in without a big deal. You might also be able to get away with using it with like a brighter like stone fruit flavor too. It's not really going to call attention to itself. 27 fish is like that fake bright red lingonberry Swedish fish kind of thing. So any kind of berry is essentially going to work fine with that. Oh, FA Candy Wizard. Yeah, I actually ordered FA Candy Wizard and I need to try it out. I wanted to try that next to Jam It and Liquid Amber and see what happened. I was going to call it a Jam Slam. It was going to be fun. Is there any good beer flavor? No, but there are a couple bad beer flavors. Hankson beer tastes like Steel Reserve. If you take up Joy by Flavor Art or anything that's too yeasty, it gets like kind of a sour beer quality. Generally, you're not really going for that, for like the yeasty part of the beer. Flavore's Yakima hops is a really, really good hops flavor. So if you want to go more on the IPA side of things, you can basically bluff your way through it by adding a little bit of that. Flavore makes a wheat flavor too, which I know I'm plugging a lot of Flavora, but here we are. That works kind of for more of like a wheat style beer. It has some of that like cracked wheat vibe without being too aggressively yeasty. So that's another possibility. And what is the root beer? Does it have something in common with ordinary beer? So root beer does not have anything in common with ordinary beer. It is a very sweet, soft drink. Traditionally, it was made with, I want to say, sassafras, sarsaparilla, wintergreen, and I think that's about it. Maybe some extra vanilla. So yeah, it's just kind of a sort of weird, spicy, minty, sweet, caramel colored soft drink. And I just described root beer. So there we go. Good flavor for adding wetness to a cream, like not in a cactus or FA pear. That's a good question because you don't usually think about that when you're talking about creams. So you want like moisture for cream, and it's a little hard because when you start cranking up cream flavors, they do tend to dry out quite a bit. Maybe some TFA whipped cream, you know, that might work. That's flavor is basically triacidin, so it's gonna like soften all of the edges of your recipe and give you like kind of like a more moist, rounded, cohesive kind of vape if you add some of that. Yeah, but no, you've officially stumped me. I haven't really thought about that. If you need something wetter than like FA's fresh cream or Jungle Flavors cream or just one of the normal creams or milk flavors, then I'm not sure. Oh, I missed my tasting notes too. So those flavor comparisons are cool. I like doing those flavor comparisons, but they do take like quite a bit of legwork. I know it's like the least sexy thing in the world to hear somebody complain about the amount of work that they're putting on themselves. But if I'm already testing new flavors, I usually just go ahead and do my write-ups on those. And so going back and doing more of those comparison stuff takes an extra level of work. But maybe after I get through the vape train stuff, I'll start doing some more comparison stuff again, because it is helpful for me at least to have those notes written down, and I assume it's helpful for at least somebody else. My most utilized atomizer is, in fact, the OG recoil by a mile. I have 3 of the OG recoils. I use the flavor cap with them, the 2.5 millimeter flavor cap. I generally use round wire or coils that aren't super crazy, so the smaller post holes don't bother me. And I like the fact that the top cap on here, it's like a 24.5 millimeter atomizer, but that top cap, hella thick. And I don't understand science in general, but it seems like it's a slightly more consistent vape with all that like heavy ass steel just right up top. So that's cool. Vape Train Lemonade adds fizzy qualities better than fizzy sherbet. Are you going to start using that instead? Yeah, I think if I was going for something sweet, because that's kind of the Achilles heel with some of the Vape Train stuff, both that fizzy sherbet and that Vape Train Lemonade, they're a little sweet for me, especially like where I'd be using most of my fizzy stuff. I like cocktail vapes, and those generally don't come across as super sweet. And so I found that like trying to add some fizzy sherbet and stuff, it doesn't do a bad job. It just makes the profile sweeter than ultimately what I'm going for my own taste. I like my cocktail vapes a little bit on the dry side. It's the best spice flavor for an apple cider recipe. Best spice flavor is Flavora's rich cinnamon and Flavora clove. No, seriously though, if you haven't bought Flavora's rich cinnamon, just bite the bullet on it. It's expensive, but it lasts damn near forever. Fantastic, and it's a cinnamon that will work most of the places that you want a cinnamon. In terms of like spice mixes, you could add a little bit of like clove or some like ginger or something like that. Actually, cinnamon and ginger will get you most of the way. Most of the time, people don't actually want all that much clove in their recipes. If you don't have the clove and you like cloves, it is completely worth it. It is a fantastic clove flavor. I can't vape more than 0.25% of it without my mouth completely going numb, but it is an excellent dry bakery or tobacco clove flavor. If you're into cloves, completely worth the exorbitant price tag for it. My favorite fall time profile, I don't get that into fall time profiles. I know we're all supposed to be like doing our pumpkin spice nonsense and all that, but I don't know. It's just like a lot of the fall profiles have that heavier spice note. That spice note gets really cloying to me very quickly. I think something like apples, like if you want to go for like a darker apple recipe, I do like apples. I like darker apples. So yeah, I'd probably stick like more in the apple cider rather than pumpkin spice or pumpkin pie kind of camp of my fall recipes. Favorite cooler weather profile? I'm still vaping freaking menthol most of the time. There is no rhyme or reason to it. That's my favorite. I think the coolest ones are, like intricate bakeries that have some spice note but aren't like completely overwhelming. Like that's some of the coolest work that I've seen done. But in terms of what I'm vaping during the winter, it's still the same old crap. It's single flavor testers and menthol to give myself a break. Oh, what is my favorite vape train flavor so far from my recent testing? They're red dates. If you like dark fruit at all, do not sleep on the red dates. I don't eat a ton of dates. I'm not sure how accurate it is as a date flavor, but it reminds me kind of like a fig or a prune flavor, but it doesn't have a whole bunch of like weird floral nonsense to it. I like Flavora's fig, but it gets like floral and musky. This is just like a nice solid dark fruit flavor. So that's definitely my favorite that I've tested so far, just because I think it does something that I can't get anywhere else. Big fan of their booze flavors. Like I was saying earlier, their Vape Train Blood Orange Champagne, great stuff if you're into that kind of profile at all. What ethyl maltol would you recommend? Chef says TFA cotton candy, Circus cotton candy, and just ethyl maltol 10%. So TFA cotton candy and TFA ethyl maltol 10% should be basically the same thing. I think we went over the spec sheets on there, and they are literally the same thing. So I'd recommend either one of those. I just use the ethyl maltol just because I'm not 100% sure by the cotton candy, but either one should work fine. It's just 10% ethyl maltol. Circus cotton candy is blue, and it's like supposed to be like a blue cotton candy profile. And it kind of tastes like a tire fire mixed with insulation. So maybe don't get Circus cotton candy. If you're after a blue cotton candy, Flavor West's blueberry cotton candy is fantastic. Oh, I haven't mixed with any Inawera plum in a while. I have a bottle of Inawera plum and a bottle of Inawera smoked plum, but I know they reformulated them, and I haven't got a bottle of the new reformulated stuff. So I just basically gave up on them. But with the old stuff, I like Inawera plum, but it's a little bright for me. Like there's some stone fruit kind of cherry stuff in there and some weird plasticness, and it's not bad. It works with tobaccos usually when you like have other savory flavors to cover it up, but that red dates is like next level shit. Oh, Apollo Fugia, whatever. I've been told I mispronounce that almost constantly. um I liked it. It reminded me of a tropical underripe pear. So I've never had Fajoya in real life, but I watched some YouTube videos, so obviously I'm some sort of expert on it. That's the way those things work. It was good, you know, for something that had the like name of pineapple guava, like the common nickname of pineapple guava. I didn't necessarily get all that much pineapple or guava. I mean, there was something a little bit tropical to it, but like the core of the flavor to me tasted like an underripe, like Bartlett pear, like one of the green pears. I thought it was good, but I think it might be more of an accent flavor for me. It's a little hard to work with by itself just because it tastes a lot like underripe pears, but I thought it was solid. What cookie would I recommend? I would recommend Flavor Arts cookie just to piss Dave off and his love for cap sugar cookie. Yeah, I mean, Innoware biscuit or Flavor Art cookie. I like how buttery Innoware biscuit is. It's like that nicer, like kind of shortbread butteriness. And if you want some actual crunch, FA cookie works pretty well. Everybody says cap sugar cookie. I don't really like the cap bakeries, so there's nobody else here to tell you any differently. Oh, where does the warm come from in warm custard? I don't know. I don't really know. That warm custard was a little weird. It had almost like an anesthetic kind of numbing to it, and I don't know if that's supposed to be a spice note or what, but yeah, it's weird. It kind of like numbs my mouth and thins out a little bit. I wasn't a huge fan of the warm custard. Oh, yeah, you can in fact have too much of a good thing. I'm living proof. Most of the things that I like in my life that are good things, I have too much of, and now I can no longer have them. So maybe don't have too much of a good thing. Smiley, if I want to mix Wayne's Walter Malone for a pod, would I just double the percentages? Yeah, I mean that's not a bad start. You might, depending on how much you're mixing up, you might want to start with one batch at like 1.5%, but a lot of it depends on the pod system you're using because there's some pod systems that are like 7 watts and 1.8 ohms and you're barely getting any flavors. And there's some other pod systems that you get like a more robust flavor. So depending on how intense the flavor is from your actual pod system, I'd say between 1.5 to 2 times the recipe and you should be fine. Triacidin is the component that helps blend flavors. So triacidin is a component that helps blend flavors. It's like an emulsifier. It, like we were talking about TPA whipped cream, there's a whole shit ton of triacidin in there. The one in TVFH, dragon fruit, is ethyl citrate. I want to say triethyl citrate. There we go. Triethyl citrate does largely the same thing. It's in dragon fruit, but it has a little bit of like a fruitier aspect to it. So it's better for like a fruit emulsifier, and triacidin is better for a cream emulsifier. I can say chemical names and pretend I know what I'm talking about. It's pretty great. Everybody loves the internet. Good recipes with Favore heat. I have used it. Okay, so personally, I've used it in a couple places. I wouldn't call them necessarily good recipes for Mixers Club. I tried to do a Mexican hot chocolate, but I had this weird theory that Flavora's coffee tasted more like chocolate than anything else, and I kind of made like weird, warm, spicy gas station coffee. I've seen it used in a couple of good tobacco recipes too. I think it's useful for a textural modifier there. I know Dave has some new abomination out with apple filling and cooling and all sorts of other stuff that looks like a pretty fun nightmare. It's like a spicy mango nata or something like that. Oh. How can I use Fulvora milk chocolate without a dominating recipe? Make a dilution. Really, just make a dilution and use like 1/4% of a 10% dilution and just work up from there. You're going to have to make a lot of smaller test batches, but yeah, that it's funny because when you're tasting it by itself, it doesn't feel like a completely overwhelming flavor, but as soon as you start to get it in context, it starts to steamroll everything else. So yeah, started to make a dilution, small batches, start low. Should be able to find like a good point for it. Generally, you're Probably okay under 0.1%, but that's going to be a whole lot easier if you make a dilution first. Yeah, no, it's an absolutely delicious bully too. Uh, do I have a suggestion for a collective noun of vapors? Short bus. A short bus of vapors is the technical term. FA whipped cream. I want to say FA whipped cream is one of their kitchen line. So I think I have that one. And I think I've tried that one. It's a good whipped cream flavor. It's hard as hell to get your hands on, but it's delicious. So if you wanted to use that for an actual whipped cream, I think that's going to work better. TPA's whipped cream doesn't really. Oh, yeah, I'm talking about TPA. You're talking about caps. Uh, it will kind of emulsify maybe a little bit just because you have a softer cream flavor, but generally with the whipped cream, you want it to kind of stand out a little bit on top of what you're adding it into. So FA whipped cream to me tastier than Caps vanilla whipped cream, but I do like Caps vanilla whipped cream too. So decent sub. FA is probably a little bit better, and it's definitely not going to make your recipe any harder, but it isn't going to work as well as TPA's whipped cream. What qualities will VT pudding base add to a pudding recipe? Vape Train's pudding base is not a like Jello vanilla pudding flavor. It's like a bread pudding flavor. So it's more of like a weird, warm, exotic kind of AP. I've had a lot of luck sneaking it into bakery recipes at like 0.25%, 0.5%, somewhere around there. It really dominates once you start when you start like ramping it up. But it adds, it's kind of like Capella's Cereal 27, but it's less corny and a little bit warmer. So it adds like a good like bakery warmth and volume to the stuff that you add it to. But yeah, it's not like a vanilla pudding base. TFA butter. If you can vape TFA butter without tasting straight black pepper, good for you. Because TFA butter is one of those things like I vape and I just taste black pepper. So I'm not great with percentage recommendations on that. You probably won't blow yourself out at like 1%, but again, start low and work up. And yes, these are in fact, well, I don't know if they're wild toucans or not, but yeah, no, this is my party shirt because we're announcing that Mixlife is moving to Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. So I'm celebrating that with you people. Can you use Flavor West yellow cake to make a pie? I wouldn't really. It's too fluffy and like that frostingy note and that sugar syrup, like it's not going to be your best bet for a pie. So good pie flavors, FA's apple pie. No real apple in it. It has a little bit of fruitiness, but it's probably the best straight ahead pie crust flavor. You can add some Inawera biscuit to add some extra richness to it. And then if you need to, you could go back and add some Flavor West pie crust, like very small percentage of Flavor West pie crust to kind of just dry it out a little bit. But yeah, I'd stay away from the yellow cake. Oh, good use for Favor red tea. I don't know. Do you have one? I haven't really messed with it yet. It's a pretty good rubus. I can't pronounce anything flavor. But yeah, I haven't really messed with it that much. Feels like it's going to go well with some fruits. It's an interesting flavor though. It's a pretty good solo. So I would, yeah, I'd stick it more in like the rooibos tea realm and kind of maybe just try adding some lighter fruits, maybe some lighter florals and stuff, and keep it all beveragey and stuff. Thank you, Emily, for the question about the butter. It tastes like black pepper and movie theater popcorn butter to me, and that's not necessarily good. So thank you, Emily. Yeah, no, it could definitely work with tobaccos too, Alfred pudding. Like that's the thing. Like I'm kind of sad I didn't have a chance to play around with that one because it does have like kind of like an earthiness and a nuttiness to it without being like overtly liquidy. It apparently that's the thing with rooibos. So yeah, it could work really well in tobacco recipe too. That's a really good idea. And FA butter is good. FA butter is like forbidden butter and it's delicious. Oh, super sweet. Super sweet is a whole bunch of sucralose and a whole bunch of like weird preservatives that taste super like bright and harsh for me, but I'm more sensitive to those things than other people. But I will say that super sweet, a whole lot of sucralose, a little bit of brightness, doesn't really work with bakeries, doesn't really work with creams, but it's good for like a fruit or a candy based sweetener. Very strong. Flavora's sweetness, there's been some debate about that. Flavora said it was just sucralose. Doesn't feel like just sucralose to me, so I'm not sure what the hell is going on there. It's good. It's a little bit, I guess, more natural tasting. The original thing was it was supposed to be like reformulated stevia that doesn't have the anise taste. And who knows if that is true or not, but that's essentially how it works. It's like a nicer, more mellow kind of inherent sweetness. You can usually go up to about 1% before it starts to taste a little weird. It is definitely a little bit more subtle, though. Like, super sweet's more of just a jackhammer with all those bright, like, preservative like citric notes, and Flavora's sweetness is a little bit more mellow, but again it works a little bit better if you want to go subtle about it. But shout out to Flavor West Sweetener. Flavor West Sweetener is literally just sucralose and propylene glycol. That's what I use for 95% of everything I do. It's a little bit less sweet than Cap Super Sweet, maybe about half as sweet, but it doesn't have like those same kind of like preservative, like citrus, like harsh things going on for it. So if you're sensitive to that, or if you want to use it in like a bakery profile or a cream profile, Flavor West Sweetener, good source of your daily recommended allotment of sucralose. Yeah. So yeah, what is a good sweetener for bakeries? I would go Flavor West Sweetener for that, honestly. Oh, do you think Flavora Connecticut Shade will work with Wonder Flavors Brazilian coffee? Yes. I haven't tried the Wonder Flavors Brazilian coffee. It kind of depends on how skunky it is. So I don't think that the Connecticut Shade by itself is skunky. It has those like kind of like coffee cocoa kind of notes to it. Doesn't read to me as skunky, but I would be a little bit careful adding that up next to another coffee flavor. If that Wonder Flavors Brazilian coffee flavor is like skunky at all, it could pop that. But it's a good idea. Maybe just take it slow. Oh, do I have an all-day vapor a fallback recipe? I am literally the most boring person in the world when I'm not testing something. My fallback recipe is 0.5% of Flavora's Cool Menthol and more nicotine than I probably need. That's what I've been just squonking most every time you actually see me, and I'm not talking about a flavor. I'm usually just squonking menthol and too much nicotine. Is TFA acetylpyrazine a must-have flavor? Or are there better substitutions? So TFA acetylpyrazine is a very specialized tool. If you overdo the acetylpyrazine by just a little bit, your entire recipe starts to taste like corn chips, but it can help boost up bakery notes that aren't quite there. But it isn't a neutral bakery booster. It's more like, let's add like hard corn chip underneath it. So it only works in specific circumstances. My favorite like texture booster for bakeries, my favorite source of that kind of thing is Capella's Cereal 27. I feel like it's a lot softer and easier to work with and less domineering than just straight TFA acetylpyrazine. So I'd probably suggest Cereal 27 by Capella if you wanted to just get a bakery booster going on. Oh, what should I apply Vape Train Golden Syrup to? Everything in your life. Just rub it all over yourself. No, so it's supposed to be like a treacle syrup. It has like a kind of molasses kind of quality to it. I think Koppel has a recipe out there for pancakes using it, so you can use it in your bakeries like that. Um, Generally, it could be used as a sweetener too, but like softer bakery profiles that you want some of that kind of like golden syrup, like darkness and richness on top of, probably something like that. Cap hibiscus is a phantasmagorical waking nightmare of deliciousness. So cap hibiscus is one of the stranger flavors that I use on a regular basis. It gets lumped in with florals, but really it isn't that much of a floral. It's more of a sort of fruit flavor bordering on a floral. It reminds me a lot of hibiscus tea. So it has that same sort of like hibiscus tea kind of depth to it. It's pretty intensely sweet. And the coolest thing about cap hibiscus, it's sticky. It has a very distinct, like sticky, like have you ever had like a Slurpee or whatever, right? And those are just chock full of science sugars that make it like all sticky and actually like cling to your palate. Cap hibiscus for me has some of that, so I use it a lot for like a sweet textural modifier at lower percentages. Yes, the rage mod is thumbs up. I was kind of ambivalent on this entire squonking thing, and I'm still not like a squonk fan because I switch juices a million different times a day. But for like my test mix, like my menthol mix, I've just been using this pretty much nonstop. I've got a recurve on top with the rage underneath, just vaping menthol. Perfectly happy. It's great stuff. Fulvora Greek yogurt and TFA Greek yogurt are interchangeable. Yeah, I mean, functionally, I think the Fulvora Greek yogurt's a little bit better. It has more depth, but really, they're both such aggressive flavors. You're probably going to be using fairly small percentages of them. If you wanted to pick up a Greek yogurt, I'd probably still pick up Fulvora Greek yogurt. But if you have TFA Greek yogurt, it's pretty interchangeable for the kind of percentages you're going to be using. What percentage should I be using Fulvora cranberry and the cranberry apple? Fulvora cranberry is one of those flavors that is a little bit difficult to mix with. If you're vaping it solo, you can take it up to like even 2%, but it tends to push around mixes a lot. So if you're mixing with it, I'd go definitely under 1%, probably start at a 0.5% and work up from there. It's a pretty unique, like punchy flavor. The cranberry apple, I haven't mixed with that one so much. It's super harsh to me. I know a lot of people like it, and it's a good flavor. But you're probably looking more around like the 1% level. I don't think it needs like a dilution or anything, but it's fairly potent. Best use for chef's Devon cream. Again, just apply all over yourself and to everything. No, it's like a more buttery version of vanilla swirl for me. It has some body to it, like some actual thick body to it, but it also has some butter to it too, which is nice. So it works to like thicken up bakery recipes. I haven't had it really like sit on top of a bakery before, so your best bet would be either adding smaller percentages to bakeries to richen them up, or using it with like big bright fruits and playing it off against the bright fruits, but it's tasty stuff. Sorry, Lori, I can't describe RF rice pudding super concentrate, and I'm not the biggest fan of FA sweet rice. Flavor Express sweet rice starts really, really promising. It has a little bit of texture to it, a little bit of warmth. It has that kind of like jasmine rice perfume that you get when you first open up like a bag of rice. Like, it's a very solid flavor for about like 2-3 days, and then for me it just completely falls apart. It gets muddy. It loses a lot of like the rice to it, and kind of, I think Dave ID10T said that it turned into a tortilla after it steeped. So yeah. Unfortunately, I haven't tried the Real Flavors rice pudding super concentrate. There's a big variety of creams now. Are TPA cap sweet cream still relevant? TPA sweet cream, I think you still see a little bit of use of that one. Cap sweet cream tends to mute most of the things it's put up against, so you see it in like a lot of like older classic recipes. I mean, they're not irrelevant, but you can use stuff like Flavor Arts fresh cream that tends to have less of a negative impact on the recipe around it. Thoughts on Flavor West Peach? I have not tried Flavor West Peach. There's a whole bunch of Flavor West fruits that I need to try, and I know some of them are supposed to be terrible, but I've been really impressed by like the random smatterings of their natural line I've got so far. So I need to dig heavier into all the Flavor West stuff. Commercial juice lines I'm a fan of. Eh, honestly, I haven't bought a lot of juice in a long time. I like Charlie Noble, but that's because I used to vape it back in the day, and I'm completely and totally biased at this point. So you can ignore that one entirely. When I first started vaping, it was a lot of stuff by Jimmy the Juice Man and Charlie Noble. Actually, those were my two big go-tos. I went through like a shit ton of Sherb and Strawberry Astronaut and that pear caramel thing they did, and then for Charlie Noble, just bounced around there quite a bit too. Their Poseidon Punch, I think, was a big one for me for a while. But I have been almost completely out of the game on that stuff. I'm one of those joyless DIY nerds. Oh shit! I used to vape a whole bunch of Space Rocks by Lost Art too, which I don't know if that's embarrassing or not, but there you go. I was a Space Rocks addict. Oh, Innoware custard instead of a vanilla custard. Innoware custard is great if you want a short steep time. I think it's a really good custard flavor. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Cap's vanilla custard V1. It tastes like hot sweet chalk to me. Their V2 is a little bit better, but it needs to steep forever. FA's custard's thin and lemony. TPA's custard, vanilla custard, is actually pretty good if you don't taste black pepper, but I taste black pepper from it, so I don't really use it much. Innoware custard, Swiss Army knife of custards basically fits in absolutely any place. The vanilla for me isn't as aggressive and chalky, and it doesn't need like a shit ton of time to steep. So just use it for everything. Polar Blast by itself, 1 to 2%. It's not the most aggressive coolant in the entire world, but with coolants and stuff, a whole lot of it is completely subjective. So I don't think you're going to kill yourself if you start at 1%. Salubarome flavors. I haven't messed around with a whole lot of Salubarome flavors, but the ones I have, I wasn't super impressed with. I know that Emily has done a whole lot more Salubarome flavors than I have. How would I compare liquid barn vanilla ice cream and vape train vanilla ice cream? I actually haven't tried the vape train vanilla ice cream yet. Liquid barn vanilla ice cream, solid, little bit one note. The vanilla is a little flat, a little boring, but it's nice and rich. Does give me a little bit of black pepper, but not as bad as TPA. But I'm looking forward to trying the vape train vanilla ice cream. What menthol flavor is the closest to the menthol in cigarettes, not a candy spearmint toothpaste? Menthol, like literally just menthol. Like you can buy Flavor West's menthol, Flavora's cool menthol. Generally, there'd be some sort of like off-brand option for menthol where you're buying like menthol 10% NPG or whatever. Just that straight menthol is what's in cigarettes. Oh, have I found a good use for Flavora black tea with all of its lavender? I haven't been mixing many teas, man. It's yeah. I think you'd have to deal with some of the floral notes there. I'm sorry. So you got to have the nicotine to keep going here, man. This is some sort of question marathon. I've only mostly embarrassed myself, so we're having fun here. Yeah, Flavora black tea. There is quite a bit of. See, I almost get more of a jasmine out of there. I think I'm trying to remember back to my notes here, and it smells a lot like jasmine, like the jasmine from a green tea. Um, but it doesn't taste like dirt, so that's nice. But yeah, it definitely has like a green tea jasmine floral note to it. So you're gonna have some issues like mixing with creams and stuff like that. You're probably better off ditching the creams on this one and sticking to like fruity accents or floral accents or something. Um, I seem to remember from the testing that it didn't go full perfumey, but yeah, there was definitely like a jasmine green tea vibe going on. So it's a little confusingly named. And Emily's coming through with the Slugarome suggestions. I haven't tried any of the Delos yet, so who knows if that will actually happen. Take that up. Take that up with my man's Graham, the best manager in the business, unless you're talking about actually getting me Delosi flavors. Shout out, Graham. See, I can't repeat that right now, Emily, because I'm still trying to stay in people's good graces. I usually wait until after I get their flavors to start saying stuff like delightfully mediocre. Oh, good use for LB Dew Mountain. I remember talking about that with ID10T, and he was saying that if you add some like TFA citrus punch, and I want to say it was some TFA pineapple, something like that, to brighten it up a little bit. There's something there, right? Like it captures the orangey parts of Mountain Dew fairly well. It just needs quite a bit more brightness. So you're probably gonna have to add in a whole bunch of bright flavors and then dial it all back with like 0.5%, 1% of ethyl maltol just to make the actual stuff vapeable. But it feels like the start for an interesting recipe. I just haven't actually done it. Touch of honeydew. There you go. Maybe it was Emily that said it. All of these people are smarter than I am at these kind of things. I just taste stuff and say, it's okay. And they're the ones that actually figure out how to make it work. So, yeah, mission accomplished, though. We'll go ahead and like start to call unless anybody else has any other burning desires that they wish to share with me or Emily, who's doing a ton of work in the chat. So thank you, Emily. But yeah, this is supposed to be short. This is supposed to be just saying that Mixlife is moving to Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. So I'll stick around for like another minute. We'll see if everything's cleared up. But yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. And I talked for like a half hour straight. So I'm impressed with myself. I'm impressed with all of you. Cheers all around. Oh, and thank you, Alfred Pudding and Andrew Garfield and everybody else who asked questions for making this kind of thing possible. Really do appreciate it. So awesome. Yeah, cool. I think we're wrapping up. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Remember, you can always buy our shit. We appreciate it when you do buy our shit. We have a line of 10 unreleased exclusive flavors over at Wizard Labs. And then also you can look for us on Chefs. We've got the entire e-juice makers collection on chefsflavors.co.uk. Everything's really solid. I am going to go watch some football, but everybody else have a good afternoon and we will see you on Wednesday.